The following podcast on the Your Own Pay Podcast Network will contain adult content. Listener discretion is advised. More information about this episode can be found at yourownpay.com.
Hey, bro, let's get into this thing.
It's Damashe and Michael, just talking tech.
I am recording. Everywhere. All of the recordings.
Anyone who has been interested in trying Reaper out, this doesn't really help you if you're just trying it out, but they have extended their free license to the end of January 2021. All we ask is that if you use this license, please wear a mask.
What? They didn't really say, please wear a mask.
Yeah, they did. Important, we kindly ask that users of this license commit to wearing a mask at all times when in public.
Oh, man, that is... Wow. That's. I think that's all I can say about that is wow.
yourownpay.com/DM64 will have a... No, we won't, because this is going to come out in January, but...
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it might still be helpful for somebody that didn't know about it.
And they were doing this through July, and apparently they've reissued that. So who knows if it's still going to be there? But we'll have a link to Reaper and the important, pertinent information to get started with Reaper while using an assistive technology device.
I need to figure out. I need to actually sit down and play with Keyboard Maestro in some time frame where I have time to just kind of screw around with stuff. Not like, oh, let me build this quick little thing that does this thing and then get out of here because I got work to do. I would like to set it up so that I have a system-wide keyboard shortcut that will trigger a Keyboard Maestro macro. I think this is going to be the best way to do this anyway. Trigger a Keyboard Maestro macro. That's a mouthful. That will jump to the Reaper. Oh, geez. So what I wanted to do is press the M key in Reaper, right? Like I wanted to press a M in Reaper to drop a marker so I don't have to do what I just did, which is flip out of the browser and then go back to Reaper, drop a M and then go back to the browser so I can finish screwing around, which is basically what I was just doing. But I don't want it to move my focus, right? I just want, Keyboard Maestro to just address that in the background.
That's what I was going to say. Can you not have Keyboard Maestro run actions in the background and not move focus? I don't know if that's...
I think so.
But.
I think so. That's the thing I got to play around with is like how to actually get that working. And I most likely what I'm going to end up having to do once I start actually trying to work on that, because it's been a semi goal of mine for a while since I started back actually recording in Reaper, is to be able to just drop those markers. That was one of the purposes of trying to get the whole mixture thing to work in Reaper, so that I could drop markers as we were recording, and then we know where our edit points are, or we know where a chapter should start, if we get that professional about this whole thing.
We had chapters for a little bit, and then I finally said, fuck it. We don't stay on a single topic for long enough.
That's what I meant. Like, not us putting chapters in, but us being professional enough that it actually makes sense to have chapters, because there are delineated sections of the conversation that stay on topic, which doesn't really happen. So,
man, people, he has high hopes for this show. So the topic that we were going to talk about is TextExpander and how you're organizing your TextExpander or how you've gotten around it. But before we get into that, I do want to give two caveats caveats and tips for what I learned. And that is, if you are adding... I'm taking notes and drafts. If you are adding TextExpander to drafts on iOS, you do, once you connect it and you go in and hit the button to allow TextExpander, then you hit refresh snippets, close drafts, close TextExpander, and then reopen drafts, because I spent probably 20 minutes this morning before I went down my Hazel path of trying to figure out how to get snippets to autofill in drafts. And I'm like, well, this is stupid. That was a lot of work to not get it to work. But if you close drafts and you close TextExpander and then you reopen drafts, it seems like it's working. So if that's ever an issue, what did I learn when I was using computers when I was younger? If it's broken, restart it. Oh,
well, that's how it works most of the time.
And then the second thing is I
Kick it if it doesn't work.
kick it. So my initial thing was I want to download TextExpander to the Mac so I can quickly go through my snippets, delete the ones I don't want, and then, go ahead and just start getting familiar with my snippets again. But the problem is my snippets weren't anywhere where I thought they were. Long story short, I had a couple of groups. One was the My Snippets thing that had one snippet in there. And that's what I saw on the Mac. And I'm like, well, this is weird because I have a lot more than one snippet. All of my snippets were going into a group that I shared with a virtual assistant 3 years ago. I don't even know if that VA has access to that group anymore, but it was in the assistant shared group. And how I found this is I went on the iPhone and I was playing with TextExpander on the iPhone. And I'm like, well, why don't I try to clean them up here? You can flick down on a snippet to delete it. So side note, they do take advantage of actions. But once I did find all those snippets, I was able to go delete everything I didn't need, which brought my snippet count from, I think I had 71 to now I have 14 because right now I'm pretty much starting from scratch. My next goal is to figure out how to move the snippets out of the assistants group and put them into the My Snippets group, so that way I can play with that. I'm not sure if I can do that with the new TextExpander or if I'm just going to have to rebuild them, which either way won't it be an issue because I'm down to 14 versus 71.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so I was thinking, up until this most recent update to TextExpander on the Mac, I could have told you exactly how to do what you want to do. With this new TextExpander, man, I don't know because I haven't even looked at it. I saw it and I was like, what the hell did they do to my app? It's like a web browser thing now. I don't like this. And I left it and it's still running because obviously I still need my snippets to work, but I have not been back in there since then. And I'm going to, just being honest, I have not even looked at it other than I saw that and I was like, oh man, they really screwed up TextExpander. Then I texted Mike and I said, man, they really screwed up TextExpander at this most recent update.
Said, welcome to my Windows life. Oh.
That is what Mike said to me. And I was like, I assume that's what they were doing, was like making it match up with the Windows version and the web version. But man, a little warning smile would have been nice.
Yeah.
Because it's not a major version update. That's, I think, what kind of actually has me angry about it, or just a little bit, not too angry, but just slightly more annoyed than I would normally be because it's not version 7 of TextExpander. It went from version 6.7 something to 6.8. And all of a sudden I have an entirely new design. And it's like, man, I wasn't expecting this. It's not how you do these things, man. That's why version numbers exist. So when, hey, there's going to be possibly radically different things going on in here. Look, I don't understand. How are you going to start switching to the random Leer big versions with point updates like Apple was doing with Mac OS as soon as Apple switches away from doing that? Doesn't make sense.
I was thinking maybe we're on a beta, and then I just went and quickly checked, and I am not on a beta of TextExpander. So this isn't like something they're experimenting with. They just, surprise, we're live now.
It was update because I know I wasn't on a beta because I've never been on a beta for TextExpander anywhere. And you get the little update window that was showing like, oh, update the TextExpander version 6.8, blah, 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 right? And I'm like, okay, well, it's just normal update. That's how that happens. They probably got Big Sur compatibility things or something like that. Cool.
Oh, they did.
Update. And it comes back and it's like, what the hell did you do to my app, man?
So what are you doing with TextExpander?
Bitching about it and angry and thinking about trying out this new service. So there's a new service that I meant to talk to you about. I'm going to get back to the thing. See, this is why we can't have chapters, man. This is why we can't have nice things. One thing that I was thinking about in this random 6.8 change to my crap has annoyed me. Allison Sheridan over at podfeet.com hosted a No Silicast and a couple of other great podcasts. Found a tool called Expanso, which has a command line element to it. I will attempt to, for the show notes, I will grab a link to the portion of her show as well as linking to the blog post she wrote about it. talking about it. But it looked kind of interesting. It's also cross-platform, and I was going to mention it to Mike at some point, and then I realized that Mike seemed to be kind of slowly graduating back into Mac OS. So I was like, well, never mind. I'm not going to say anything about it now because, well, he's coming back into the Apple world again, which is slightly weird.
Yeah.
In some ways. I thought Mike was going to go try Linux, desktop Linux out at some point, if he continued on the path that he was on. And he just completely reversed. But Expanso sounds like an interesting tool. I'll probably take a look at it. It has some, she has the title of Expanso Text Expansion for Nerds. So we will link that in the show notes at yourownpay.com/DM64. But to answer your question, Mike, about what am I doing with TextExpander. So, and I have a question for you when I get to the end of this too. But what I'm doing, because I have a ton more snippets than 14. It might be nice to get back down to 14 snippets. Hell, it might be nice to get down to 71. But I do use groups in TextExpander very heavily for several reasons. I do have a couple of shared groups, one of which I think is shared with you, possibly, maybe still shared with you.
Yeah, we do have a shared group. I don't know if it's still active. I think it is, but
I'm not looking at this app. I'm going to go to the web browser now. I'm done. It's just TextExpander in the browser, all over the place.
Didn't I used to tell you, hey, Damashe, TextExpander in the browser is a better experience than in the app itself?
Yeah, but that was from the Windows side of things. And I'm like, yeah, comparing it to Windows, it might be, but on the Mac, maybe probably not. I'm not going over there. Now I guess I better go take a look at it so I know. Oddly enough, I'm probably going to end up using Windows quite a bit here pretty soon.
That's weird. I'm coming back to Mac and you're using Windows more.
Yeah. Windows 7, though.
Okay, yeah, you can have Windows.
The last great Windows.
Yeah.
But I also make heavy use of groups because I started early enough in my use of TextExpander using their groups to keep things separate. So, for example, I tend to create snippets that I use in the terminal, whether locally on my Mac or from remote SSH connected to a server, little snippets for different commands that I know that this command exists. I'm not going to remember the exact syntax of how to write it to get the results that I want. So I make it a snippet. And I put it in a group called command line, I think it's just called command line. Yep, just called command line. And what I also do is I prefix all of my groups. So when you create a group in TextExpander, you're able to put in like a prefix for said group. So all of my snippets that are in the command line group start with CLI hyphen.
Okay.
And then the second thing that I've started to do more recently than using groups is I don't like when I first started using TextExpander, I had it in my brain for some reason that like, oh, all my snippets need to be like super short. So like, I need to use,
semicolon M for email addresses or.
Yeah, something like that. Except I never use a semicolon, DTM for Damashe Thomas mail or something. I mean, for my email, right? But it just, and then you screw around and you start running out of little shortcodes to use. So what I have recently started doing, I say probably in the past year, is like not really caring if the snippet is long, but caring more about me being able to remember what the snippet actually is. So an example of that, there is a command line. So for WP CLI, which is the WordPress command line utility, I have, because it's weird and it takes up a bunch of memory when you try to install a package with WordPress CLI. Not really relevant for everybody listening, but this is why this command is this way, because if you just run WP package install and then give it a package name, 9 times out of 10 it's going to say, oh, I ran out of memory while I was trying to do this, blah blah blah. So there's a different command that you use. It's like, WP something something PHP memory limit equals et cetera, right? Like I can't even remember what's all in the command, but what I made the snippet is I made the snippet, all of that glop at the front, and then all I have to do at the end is just type in the package name, or I can backspace and hit uninstall if I'm trying to remove it. But I made the snippet CLI, because it's in the command line group, hyphen WP package install. Now, that is long as hell for a snippet. In my mind, it still seems like it's super long, right? But on the flip side, I'm never going to forget what it is. So I'm not going to be sitting there trying to get the snippet to expand, and I'm typing different things, trying to see, oh, nope, that's not it. Backspace. Type something slightly different. Nope, that's not it. Like, I'm wasting more time than it would have took me to just go Google it, copy and paste.
That is so true. And it works for you. And even though it is long, I imagine it is shorter than the actual command that you have to type.
Oh man, it is way shorter than that.
And you don't have to worry about type errors, typos. Yeah.
Mistakes. Yep. No typos. Exactly. And that's just a tip that I was in the process of sharing with Mike yesterday. He said, nope, you should save it for the show. So now it's a tip for you all listening too. You don't have to make them as long as I made that, but I do have a lot of WP commands, so that's another reason for that being extremely long, because I do have a lot of WP CLI snippets saved. But don't be afraid to use a slightly longer snippet that makes sense. Just make it 2 words, work email. Well, type MB work email, right? It's in that case, maybe not shorter than your email address is for work, but something similar. Don't be afraid to put more words in there, because the thing that happens in everybody that I know that has ever gotten into using TextExpander, comes to rely on it the way that we do, they have all said the same thing. I forget that I have a snippet. It got so bad, and I'm pretty sure this is such a repeatable thing, is that, Smile put in a feature in, I believe it came in version 6. It may have been there in version 5, but I know it's been there since version 6 launched, which is also when they switched to subscriptions, where you have an option to have TextExpander, remind you when it sees you type something that you have as a snippet, to be like, hey, you have a snippet for this. Would you like to use it?
Or my other hated but enjoyed feature is, hey, you seem to be typing this a lot. Would you like to make a snippet out of it? And then I'm like, yeah, it would. But I'm not going to remember when I make that snippet. But recently, so what I've been doing is I have to send pre-formatted invoices to people. And typically these invoices are in Word documents. And so I have gotten to the point where and maybe I will take your tip up and put the actual client name and then INV after it or something, because I was using client name, first initial of client's name, INV. And sometimes it was it HP? Was it OH? What did I put there? And did I put a hyphen or a special character before that? Whereas if I just type in client's name space INV, or because you can have spaces in your expansions.
No, you can't.
No, you can't. No,
but
you could put client's name, INV. At the end, and then that's going to send the prompt you to fill in the information to create the invoice so you can send it.
And see, the good thing about something like that is that you're not likely to accidentally type that, right? You might type the client's name somewhere, but you're not going to type client name INV on accident, right? That's going to be a more intentional thing.
Unless you're writing client's name investigation, and if so, then maybe you have more problems of worrying about a TextExpander. Yeah, there would be space too.
But I mean, if you were putting a space in there, you'd probably be okay. But yeah, and that's what I mean. Just something simple like that. So that way you're not in that scenario. I know I made a snippet for this, but what exactly did I type for the snippet because I was trying to be fancy? I still have a problem that I'm just, honestly too lazy to go fix, because I think about it when I'm actually trying to figure out what the snippet is, but at the same time, I'm trying to do what I need to do. So I'm not in the mood or the frame of mind to go change the snippet. And then as soon as I'm done, but it's to create a database, go through the steps of inserting the proper syntax to create a database user and create a database and give the database user permissions to, access the database. in SQL syntax. And I don't remember exactly how to write it. So I made it a snippet because I know I would do it a lot because I do a lot of local development on the computer with WordPress. So I need to create a database and a user. The simple thing probably would have been to just have one database user and just create new databases every time. But screw that. It's not what I did. But anyway, there's one particular command where I'm trying to create the user and I always forget what it is. And a part of the problem is that I have it as CLI hyphen create DB pops up the little, a little fill in snippet from you put in the database name and then I'm done. Okay. And then I was like, okay, I didn't do CLI hyphen create user, create user because the CLI hyphen is just because it's in that group. I didn't put create user. I can't type, it can't be create DB user because as soon as I hit the B, like, boom, there's another snippet for the, it's like, geez, I should fix it. And no, Mike, I don't remember what it is right now either. While I'm talking it
now,
out.
you can use a shortcut to search your snippets, but in my opinion, once I've searched the snippet, why do I even want to type it? I'll just copy it out of the snippet body itself and paste it where it needs to go. Although I do type the snippets because sometimes I do use a search. But can you search snippets in LaunchBar?
You can. There may be an action you need to install. I can't remember, but yeah, you can search your snippets, and you can search your snippets in LaunchBar.
Clipboard Manager in LaunchBar. When I saw that in the preferences, I'm like, that's one of the things I missed about Mac. You have a limited clipboard manager on Windows 10, but sometimes I get myself into the place where I'm copying and pasting some of the same things over and over and over. And I'm like, man, I wish I had a way to be able to quickly do this, but the clipboard manager in LaunchBar could have helped me with that with previous projects. So that's my quick side note. So for people who didn't know, in the latest version of 1Password on the Mac, you can have it unlock with your Apple Watch if you have that and a T chip. I think it works with T1 and T2, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then the other new feature with 1Password is the fact that you can just use your arrow keys to quickly fill content if you only use 1Password Manager and you're not using iCloud and 1Password.
Yep,
I was trying to think of a
Safari.
connected joke to make there.
And that is so if you've used 1Password X at all in Chrome or Firefox or Brave or Edge, this basically in 1Password 7.7 as a similar feature. It's not the same feature because it's still dependent upon you having the main 1Password app installed, whereas 1Password X is its own standalone web version of 1Password. But it gives you that similar functionality. So when you're in Safari, you can use your arrows to select and hit return, and it'll fill in your passwords, credit card numbers, all sorts of things. And yeah, you don't want to have that running at the same time that you have iCloud Keychain on, because then they kind of fight with each other and you don't know which one you're getting.
And with the Apple Watch unlock, go ahead.
I was going to say, although I find it quite strange to use Apple Keychain and 1Password at the same time anyway.
Yes,
but
in general.
It's just me.
And with the Apple Watch keychain or Apple Watch unlockability, you do have, and let's be transparent here, I have not gotten the Apple Watch feature to successfully work. It says that it's going to unlock with my Apple Watch, but then it prompts me for my password or for my fingerprint. However, I think that may have been because I hadn't restarted the Mac. I'm going to play around with it a little bit more over the near future, because I recently, like right when I noticed that was a feature in 1Password 7.2 or whatever version number it is, when that was released, that's when I reset up in security to have the MacBook unlock with my Apple Watch, and then I never rebooted it. So what's supposed to happen is when you open 1Password, as long as that Apple Watch is on and it's close to the Mac, which you'd have to have super long arms for not to be, but that's a besides the point. Or using a Bluetooth keyboard.
That actually is a practical.
Right. Right.
So
I
there you
just
go.
thought about that as I was saying it. But when you open 1Password, it should not prompt you for any biometrics or for your password. And in the preferences, instead of it being 10 minutes for it to prompt you for a password, they have changed the option, and the default thing is 1 week. And when I first saw that, I'm like, what? You don't want my password for 1 week? And then I put 2 and 2 together and realized, well, yeah, it's going to prompt me for my password once every week, as long as I'm using the Apple Watch. But in the interim, I won't have to enter my password unless I don't have my Apple Watch on me, which, as I said, I have to be transparent and say I haven't gotten this to work the way it's supposed to, but it is the first iteration of it, and I'm excited to see where they're going with it. Because
this is a feature that I have wanted since Apple introduced the ability to unlock your Mac with your Apple Watch. Which I think probably was around before I actually had an Apple Watch. So I think I wanted this ever since I got an Apple Watch and decided I liked it. There's a forum thread, which I will attempt to link to if I remember. Hold on one sec, because I should.
So I got it to work. I have to give a follow-up on this, literally follow-up. And maybe it's been
real-time feedback.
Yes, maybe it's been working this way the entire time, too. So let me walk you through.
You have to double-click the button.
Yep. I would always feel the tap, but I would never look at my screen. Well, this time I felt the tap, and I decided to look at my screen, and hey, look, it unlocked 1Password with my Apple Watch. So it does work. Disregard everything I just said, and I'm going to leave it in there because it happens. So what you actually have to do is when you open 1Password or you feel that little tap and you're expecting it, you do have to double click the long side button as if you were using Apple Pay, I think is how that would work.
Yep.
So
that's how Apple Pay works if you don't have Touch ID on your Mac also.
Yep. So that is awesome. It does work that way. Good times.
Yeah, a few other things, like also I think it started in Catalina. You can turn on the option where I think just checking the box to allow the watch to unlock your Mac also turns this on. Oftentimes you get a password prompt for your user account password for something. It will tap your wrist instead of you having to actually type in that password. I really am excited about this feature finally coming. Unfortunately, it is only restricted to those Macs, probably I'm going to say from 2016 forward, because I think that is when they first had the T1 chip was in those MacBook Pros with the touch bar and Touch ID. Mm-hmm. This also is extended to computers that don't have Touch ID. So like any current generation iMac, I would say released in the past 3 years, the iMac Pro, if you own one of those, the Mac Pro, the M1 Macs, of course, and then also the 2018 Mac Mini. So all your computer actually has to have is just a version of the T chip, whether the T1 or the T2. And you're able to take advantage of this feature, which means now I'm really incentivized to get a new computer. Making it real difficult. It's not helping with this old M1 problem.
No, not at all. Do you use Leer on the Mac?
I do not, because it was a Catalyst app when I tested out the beta of it last year? Yeah, Catalina is when they introduced Catalyst, right? Yep. Okay. So, yeah, I actually installed the beta of Catalina back then because I wanted to take a look at it, and I joined the beta of Leer. And nothing against Leer. It's just I think I don't like Catalyst apps. Like I don't like the way they're built. They to me they're horrendous. So yeah, I didn't like it. Also, the Mac app was
$20
when I was on Catalina full time. It's $20, and I was like, I don't read RSS on my computer like that in that way enough to even justify that purchase, even if I love the app.
If I need to read something on my computer, I'll good links it and then go open good links, and that will let me open the article, or at least get the information to find the article again, and then I can read it on the computer. I
did own, or do own, if it's still being developed, ReadKit for the Mac, which is an RSS reader as well. Don't have it installed at the moment. I purchased that some years ago when I was doing more research and like needed links and stuff like that for posts and all sorts of things. And it was, quicker to incorporate reading through a star. That's when I actually made heavy use of starring articles in my RSS reader too. Because I would jump over to the Mac when I was, building out a post or something like that, and be able to quickly go through, grab links and incorporate that into my workflow. But I don't even have that installed. So yeah, no way in the world am I paying $20 for Leer on the Mac. Unless they give me a touchscreen Mac, and then we might revisit that whole conversation.
You don't need a touchscreen Mac. Although editing audio on a touchscreen Mac could be fun.
Aha, see? You see?
Yeah. See? And there was no editing in that. It literally took me that long. At first, I'm like, you don't need one. And then 15 seconds later, if that. Yeah, well, although.
Or think about drag and drop, right? Like, oh, I'm over here and I want to drag that over there. Yeah, man. Some haptic
feedback. So did you listen to that Blind
editing.
Bargains podcast I sent you?
I did not. I did see the link, and I will get around to it. I think I'm subscribed to their show somewhere.
So
what was it about?
I'll get to that in a second. I don't know if we shared this in one of the previous episodes, but a couple of weeks ago, before our state shut down, Mallory and I were sitting at the bar, and she said, hey, why don't you try resetting your phone and see if it stops hanging up on people after 6 minutes? And then I lost my freaking move streak, which I'm not as upset about it now. But anyways, so I reset my phone, and Castro did not appear to save the links. And in retrospect, what I should have done is I should have backed up my phone, and I also should have exported my OPML file. Not horribly worried about it now, because I'm slowly rebuilding my podcast subscriptions, and two of them was Blind Abilities and Blind Bargains that I was no longer subscribed to until this morning. I'm like, man, that holiday 2020 holiday shopping guide never played for Blind Bargains in Castro. And then I remembered, well, yeah, it never played because you never resubscribed to Blind Bargains. So I went and resubscribed, listened to that episode, and then I went back. I'm like, there was something about the kitchen that I wanted to hear, because they had a episode where they were talking about kitchen gadgets. And Shelley Brisbane was on there. No offense to anyone else, but I forgot the other ones that were on there. I just remembered Shelley because I mentioned her book last week, and she was on the holiday guide too. Shelley and JJ, and there was two other people. And so Shelley was on there, and she was demonstrating a sous vide. And I'm like, well, Damashe was interested in that, so I sent that over to you mainly for that. But they also demonstrate a air fryer, which now I got to go and maybe reconsider my air fryer. And then they have a mixer that I got to look at, because apparently if you chop off the top and the bottom of the onions, you can put the onions in the freaking little mixer food processor thing and put it on high, and it will slice them uniformly in like 20 seconds, they said. And I'm like, man, how that would save me some time.
Whoa.
I would be willing to pay $100 to not have to slice onions.
Whoa.
That's the one job I hate doing.
Whoa. That's never thought about that. And I actually cut the top and the bottom off the onion most times anyway.
I do too.
Just to make cutting it easier, but never thought about that.
Right. So, yeah, give it a listen when you get some time. It had me thinking.
Man. Yeah, insert head exploding emoji.
Maybe I'll make more salsa then.
Oh, man.
Yes.
I will probably do more stuff. I need to make some salsa. I haven't made none in a while.
Yeah, salsa sounds good.
Now I want a taco salad. Well, shit, Mike. See what you did, man?
I have to work tomorrow. Yay. I don't know why that just ran. You said tacos. Oh, because I was thinking Tuesdays, tacos. Taco Tuesdays. And then I'm like, oh, man, Tuesdays after work.
But you could still have a taco.
Yes, I could. I could even have a taco while I'm working, maybe.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So
that rebellious.
I've been trying something a little different with Todoist.
Ooh.
I also need to clean up my Todoist, but I've been trying something a little different with Todoist. And all it really is that, so Fantastical version 3, if you are a premium subscriber, will allow you to connect to a lot of different third-party services, one of which happens to be Todoist. So it will show your Todoist tasks the same way that for any, long-time Fantastical user, very similarly in the way that it will show your reminders. If you turn that ability on in the settings, it'll now show your Todoist tasks and projects and all of those things. You can add tasks and all of this. So I decided that I was going to take a stab at just trying to manage Todoist through Fantastical. I still have the apps installed on Todoist apps installed on the Mac and on iOS, but so I was going to, experiment with just using it through Fantastical. Part of the reason that this is possible for me, at least, is because I have calendar sets, so I can, make a calendar set that is only a certain group of tasks, and then just switch to that, or make a widget on my home screen on iOS that shows this particular deal, which I haven't done that yet. I got to make sure you can actually do that with Fantastical. Is make the widget show a particular calendar set regardless of what the main app is set to. Haven't been doing it too long. Mostly I've been checking off stuff. I have added tasks that way, which led me to discovering slight incongruity, a disturbance in the way that sharing stuff on iOS works. Mm-hmm. I was looking at a plugin. I think it was a plugin. We're going to say it was a plugin. And I wanted to add it to Todoist so that I would remind myself to go take a deeper look at this plugin and see if it was something I wanted to get involved with using. So instead of doing what I would normally do, which is, hit the share sheet and go to Todoist and do all of that, I took that off and I just went to Fantastical. And then I hit the little button and made it into a reminder. I think is what they call it. But my default reminder list for Todoist, for Fantastical, is my Todoist inbox. So I did that, converted from a event to a task, and then hit save. And then I was still inside of Fantastical, and I was like, this is very strange. What happened? Something must be broken. Because ordinarily, when you are in another app and you use your share sheet to send something to a different app like Todoist or Mail or Messages, you complete doing the operation that you need to do to complete that share process, and then you fall back into the app that you started out in. Right. This does not happen with Fantastical on iOS. I have tried this several times from different apps, even including creating an event, and it's not actually taking me out of Fantastical. I'm just staying in Fantastical once I complete, adding the event or task, which is disconcerting. Mm-hmm. It is a first world problem, most certainly, because all I have to do is, 4-finger swipe to the right to get back to where I was, or probably hit the back to whatever app button in the status bar, but it's disconcerting and annoying.
Yep. You may be able to fix out the shortcut and X callback URLs to go back to the previous app that you were in.
Oh, man, then I got to go make the thing. What's the point of having the share sheet? They should let me. Well, look, if that would not be such an issue to me if it didn't put all of your shortcuts at the bottom of the list. Like, I know I can drag them up to the, move them, I think, up higher, but they're still on that second level of the share sheet. They're not, first class citizens. I can't put it right next to Messages, which would be nice.
So what's that? Todoist. I, first of all, have to give Todoist support a shout out. I asked a question on Twitter, and to be fully honest, I literally did not expect an answer. They sent me back the answer, and I played with it once, did not work. So I was getting ready to tweet them back and be like, that did not work. And then I'm like, well, let me try to add a space before the slash. And I added a space, and it worked. So I ended up tweeting them and saying, thank you, that really worked. And so shout out to Todoist, because that was awesome. If you need to add something to a specific section while using the Todoist quick entry, or using an app that interprets your text drafts into quick entry, then all you need to do is add hashtag project name. Make sure to match your case for the project, or you'll end up with duplicate projects and you won't know where anything
That is very important. That's very important. Make sure your case, it is case sensitive, yes, which is a thing I did not know.
And then hit space / in the section name. Again, I think that is case sensitive too. After learning the project thing, I didn't even try.
Let's assume it is.
Yeah, let's just assume.
Let's just assume that the section name is also case sensitive.
And then that'll put it in the section, and of course with any due dates that you add to it and stuff like that, which I'm starting to play with reminders more to keep and work out of my today screen. So let me explain that a little. I want to know when I have a task due. So a bill, for example, has a due date, needs to be paid no later than X day. And so that will show up in my today screen, and then I will complete it when I get it paid. I love picking on bills. But if I just need to do something or need to remember to do something, I'm setting reminders, typically a reminder that will be about 10 minutes before I actually need to do that task, like remind Mallory to grab something before she goes to work. Will go off at 6:40 because she leaves at 6:45. And then that also shows up in my notification center. So if I miss that reminder, well, maybe it's too late to tell her, but that reminder's still there, so I can go take a look at that task and mark it completed or not mark it completed. There may be an alternative way to handle that. And right this minute, that's what I've been experimenting with. So I can just work out of one view, which is today, and then specifically if I'm working on a different project. So if I'm working on some client work, I'll go into their project just to check to see if there's anything in there that doesn't have a due date, but it's something I can get done like right now while I'm sitting on the Mac or something.
So I have been experimenting with due dates and reminders. And so remember this whole thing where, defer dates, right? This is the reason we started messing around with OmniFocus for a second again. So what I'm starting to do, or I just recently started to do actually, is if a thing has a due date, like I just started building out some stuff for the BE stuff we were talking about earlier on the call, mm-hmm. right? So a couple of those things actually have a deadline. They need to be done by like March 1st of 2021. Like we need to have this figured out. Well, that's a deadline. That is a hard deadline. And I added a reminder so that it would remind me to look into it or make sure that somebody was looking into it on the 15th and then on the 15th of January, 1st mm-hmm. of February, right? And it occurred to me while I was setting that up, I could possibly use due dates, because some things do have a due by date, right? Even if it's a project that you're working on, it's like, well, I want to be done with this by this date. So you can't not have a due date, because then you don't know, you forget what you said you were going to do. So I was like, well, I could use reminders in place of deferred dates, and just have a reminder go off that reminds me, because the reason I went down this path, and you can tell me if you know the answer to it or not. I think you could also build a filter mm-hmm. based off whether or not something has a reminder. You
should be able to. I don't see why not. Like that would be classified as a more advanced filter, but that should be good. The other one that I have not played with, and maybe you have, is priorities. So that may be something to look at too.
I don't do much with priorities, because for the most part they don't change anything for me. Maybe as a filter tool, mm-hmm. possibly that is a way to use it. But just in general speaking, I haven't used them because they don't change anything for me. Yeah. It doesn't prioritize it in any specific way. We're like, oh, we're going to notify you 17 times until you check this off. We're not going to stop annoying you because this is priority one. Like, no. For visually, it does something, but just screen reader for screen reader users, voiceover users, it does nothing for you. It doesn't even move it higher up the list of notifications. Like, make sure you keep this one pinned to the top because it's priority one versus the task that's, priority 4 or whatever. Does work for filtering though. So maybe something to think about. Also, the Mac app has gotten better enough to the point that I can now grab the link very easily so I could email a task into a project.
Ooh. So you can do, this is filtering based on dates. You can do due date, January 3rd, shows tasks that are due on January 3rd. Due before May 5th, due after June 20th, no date, overdue 5 days, reoccurring, due before, ooh, that one's clever, due before plus 4 hours, which will show all tasks that are overdue and due in the next 4 hours. So you could do some interesting filtering stuff just based on due dates. And then you can add priority levels, P1 through P4 or no priority. And then you can also filter based on labels, projects, sub-projects, or sections. I'm sorry, I got distracted. So what were you asking?
So based on Mike's delving into the search filter constructions for Todoist, one possibility for at least making a filter that you can look at for in place of deferred dates not being a thing in Todoist could be, let me think about how to construct this now. Due in 2 weeks or due within the next 3 days. Something like kind of, you end up with a bunch of filters though is the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Because if I want to defer, working on the redesign of your own pay, I want to defer that until the end of December. That means but the due date may be, March, right? So that wouldn't help me see that and at the end of December, right? There's not, I can't think of a good filter that would structure that well enough they just need to add deferred dates is what they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be helpful, but
instead of this goofy Kanban board crap.
I am going to play with filters though, because I've went down that.
Yeah, I'm going to play them because there's There's some interesting things you could do there for filtering out, especially when, let's say, okay, there's a thing I need to do that has to be done on Windows, right? I think for me, not so much the due date of a thing would be how I would use filters. I think I would end up using it more based off project or labels.
Yeah.
Because let's say for me, it could be, I have a label that says, I don't know. I can't think of a good label, which is why I'm not using them right now because I can never think of a good label. So I'm going to use Michael's life as an example of how to use a good label. All right. So Mike needs to do a thing, but he can only do that thing on the Mac. So when he creates a task that needs to be done, he would just apply the label Mac. So he put @Mac on there. And then when he could create a filter that is searching for any project or any task that has that filter, that has that label. That's very basic. Now, if Mike was really getting convoluted, I'm only going to edit my podcast on the Mac, but I'm also only going to do, X, Y, and Z on the Mac as well, then he could start, filtering it out by due dates or when the task was, any task created in the past month that has the label Mac. He just opens up that filter when he sits down at the Mac and is like, oh, okay, now I see the things that I said I was going to do when I got over here, including installing Audio Hijack, because it's amazing.
And reinstalling Reaper because I scratched that to see if that fixes some of the issues. And I have been watching this battery as close as possible. This is probably better than last time because we're running at about, maybe it's the same, an hour and 15 minutes, and we've dropped from 100% to 42%. So, yeah.
Yep, I'm right at 75 minutes in Reaper, so that is, I think, the most accurate amount of time that we've been, the most accurate time count of how long we've been talking. I'm at 75 minutes because I started the Reaper recording first. And you said what
battery percentage right now is 41%.
Looks like Mike may have a
M1 in the near future.
M1 Mac in the future. So I'm curious. I'm honestly curious because we've kicked this around. Both of us kicked this around, and even right now, for me, I'm not 100% certain which way I would go. I know where I would go if I had to make a purchase as soon as possible. Huh?
Intel?
No, I would go with the M1.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No, I would go with the M1, but I would go with the Mac Mini for sure.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, like, if you decide to go up to an M1 Mac, because I would assume you wouldn't buy another Intel Mac at this point, or would you?
No, I don't think I would. Not
even like a used one or a refurbished one?
The only reason why I might buy an Intel Mac is twofold. Number one, if I got a super good deal on a refurbished one or even a new one that justified. But the numbers for the M1 and the Intel are pretty much the same. So that's why I would kind of go with the M1. The only other reason why I might do Intel, which using this Windows keyboard tells me that it's not even worth it, is if I wanted to boot camp or use VMware. Now, my understanding is Parallels has some tentative support for running Windows on the Mac, which tells me that tentatively, eventually, maybe Windows will come to the Mac. But when I think about it, how often do I use Windows? And we have a Windows computer in the house. So if I'm on the Mac, why not just use a Mac for the Mac? So to answer your question, to come back a full circle, it would be the M1 probably for me. Mallory's really sold on this MacBook Air M1 because she's always liked the MacBook Airs, and we sold our last one to her sister. But if I was the one getting it and it was not influenced by her or the boys at all, it would probably be the Mac Mini 16 gigs. In reality, what will probably happen is we'll either end up with a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air.
Okay.
Although we are really looking at this Mac Mini because then we can just put it up in the desk or put it on the desk in the dining room, and the boys could use it too, and it would be stationary. But Mallory, if we do that, we're going to be paying cash out of it and not doing the trade-in program with Mallory's laptop because number one, it's Mallory's laptop, is ultimately who it was bought for. And number two, she doesn't want to go from a laptop to a stationary computer because if she needed to take a computer to work or if she needed for example, she's flying to pick Nicholas up later this month. So, earlier last month, yeah. So she's flying.
Hey, we could do the Cortex thing.
Right.
It's an episode out of time. Who knows what time it is? Nobody really knows what time is.
So at the end of December, she's flying to pick Nicholas up, or she flew to pick Nicholas up, however you want to word that. And in that case, she might want to take a computer with her, but
oh man, she take that iPad Pro.
That's what she doesn't have an iPad Pro. She just has an iPad Air.
What's your iPad Pro?
She had one. She had one 2 years ago, but we sold it so she could get a new TV because I wouldn't let her get a new TV unless she sold her iPad, and the only thing she was using her iPad for was watching TV. So why would you get a new TV and not sell your fucking iPad? So,
man, okay.
But she does have iPad Air, iPad not Air. It's just the regular iPad. I think it's the 6th generation. Did Apple release? No, she got the new one this year. So the 7th generation. And so she could take that with her to the airport. And that's what I've kind of tried to explain to her. And it may be that that's what we end up doing. Because I'm going to be fully honest with you. Apple quoted us $700 for this laptop, which means Michael could get a 16 gigabyte Mac Mini for $300.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Man, wait a minute. Okay. And you bought this MacBook Pro, was it 2017?
Yes. Mid 2017.
Huh.
It's got 512.
I should go.
Or maybe it's a 256. I don't know. But that's why I asked you, did you ever check to see what Apple would offer you?
Yeah, but you didn't tell me that part. See, that makes a huge difference. I know my price is not going to be that, but even if it's half of what yours is, that would be better than I expected. The reason I had not checked is because I expected to be like, oh, we'll give you $75, $80.
Yeah.
Like, well, man.
No, they quoted $7 for this, which could get us into a Mac Mini for $300, like a decent Mac Mini too. So it's a difficult decision to make. And if I didn't have other bills to pay, then I would have just jumped on it. And chances are, maybe when you're hearing this episode, we may have jumped on it. So
it's already done it.
Yeah. So this whole conversation might be mute. Waiting to hear back from some other people about Reaper. I need to, and waiting to hear back from other people means Michael's waiting to actually reach out to them to hear back from them. To find out about Reaper, and then I need to do some research, especially since I'm getting more into it. And that's another reason why I'm highly considering of the Mac Mini. And I told you this kind of this morning. I've been playing with Hazel lately, and if I can get the Mac Mini, like what I almost did, and then I'm like, well, I don't know, should we do that or not? Is I almost put a rule on the DM show folder in Google Drive to say, move all these files somewhere, I don't know where, but move all these WAV files older than 2 months out of this folder. And then I'm like, but where am I going to move them to? I don't want to take up space on this hard drive. So right now they're going to just stay there. But yeah, I was playing with that and got my downloads rules to work, which is awesome.
So this is a question. This is a good deal because that's a good question. Do we actually need the WAV files? I would like to keep the MP3s that are in there if they're still in there. I think they're still in there.
If they're not, we need to go re-download them so we can put them back in there and just keep. And that's something to think about. Like, do we really need the original files for them? Technically, no.
Yeah, because we're not going to do when we get to episode 100, we're not going to be pulling clips. And if we do pull clips for some random reason that I haven't thought about right now, we're just going to pull them from the MP3 file. We're not going to go back and source the way. Like, we're never going to re-edit those files to do anything with them, which will be the only reason to keep the originals.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're going to go back and re-edit a show from, 2017 and re-release it as, I don't know. That's not a thing that's going to happen. I can't even think of a scenario.
And I'm thinking about it. Well, I'm looking at the Google Drive folder, and we did that purge on episode 41. Because I think, it looks like we're starting from 41 now. And so we don't have any of that content anyways.
I don't think we were using Drive before that.
Dropbox, huh?
Yeah, I think we were doing Dropbox. Yeah, I think we're doing Dropbox.
So we go back to the point of we don't have any of the content from before 41.
Oh, actually, it's not even that. I'm betting that hold on one second. I'm going to go look.
Because I wonder if we put them into maybe not Wasabi. This might be a good, what's that, Glacier? Is that what Amazon calls for archiving old content that you're not going to actually
Amazon Glacier.
Yeah. Although, I guess it's not that big. I was going to say, right now the Google Drive is 20 gigs for that folder.
No, I think we actually have a share because I think we did move to Google Drive before shared drives were a thing. So we have a folder. Remember the DM shit folder?
I remember that. Do we still have content in there?
Yep. So Google Drive started out as Google's, competitor or alternate service or their service version of something like Dropbox or OneDrive, right? And for the longest time, Google Drive was just Google Drive. You had a Google Drive folder. You could share folders with people. Their sharing used to be horrendous. I just want to throw that in because I think we have discussed this on a previous show, long time ago, as to why we were still using Dropbox, I think, possibly. But what was it, maybe a couple of years ago? I don't remember the exact timeline of this. But Google introduced, for G Suite customers, I should clarify that point. For G Suite customers, now Google Workspace, yeah, we got the memo. I'm still not happy about it. I still got it.
Previously Google Apps,
yeah. I got an interesting thing to tell you too about that. You probably heard this too. Anyway, so for Google Apps / G Suite / now today Google Workspace, by the time this is released, it could be something else. Users, you have the ability to you have now 2 different folders, what are folders inside of your Drive account. You have a My Drive, which is your personal stuff. It's all of your things. And then you have a shared drives section. Now, bear with me because this does get a little weird. On the Google Stream app for Google Drive file stream app for Mac and Windows, you will see those 2 folders. You'll see My Drive and you'll see Shared Drives. Maybe Shared Drives doesn't show up if you don't have any shared drives, but it should, because if you're a G Suite customer, you can create your own. My Drive, as I said, is tended to be for your stuff, like your personal things that you're holding on to, and then shared drives originally started out as a way to share a folder with someone else inside or outside of your organization. So me and Mike have a folder called, or a shared drive is as how Google calls it, called Your Own Pay, or what the hell is it called? We have a shared folder inside of this shared drives. I shared this folder with Mike initially. Now, the key thing about shared drives versus any other sharing that I know about from any other service, and the reason that I liked shared drives when they were introduced, is that the sharer, so the person who actually creates and shares a folder inside of a drive, that drive counts, the storage being used only counts against their storage. The person who is the sharee, who is the recipient of the shared folder, does not have that folder space count against their personal Google storage. So in the case of me and Mike, for example, I think Mike said our DM folder was 20 gigs, right? Well, that's 20 gigs of my storage is being taken up. That is not counting whatsoever against Michael's storage cap for Google Drive at all. It just counts against mine. The reason I like this is because I became a G Suite business customer about a year ago, which is why I'm upset. Anybody knows about the difference between the different G Suite levels and what they're doing with Google Workspaces, which is a whole different conversation for another show because I still have research to do. But when I became a G Suite business customer, I got unlimited drive storage. And at the time of this conversation, I have 2.2 terabytes of stuff in Google Drive.
That is ridiculous to think about. Just saying.
It is, but I'll come back to the side note after we're done to explain how I got there, though, because it's not just, I'm going to throw everything in there. No, that's not how that worked. So that's how shared drives work. And shared drives have permission levels on them. So like, you can share a folder with someone and only give them read access, or you can give them read and write access, or whatever.
That has gotten better for sure.
That has gotten way better because when shared drives were first introduced, you could only share on the primary folder level. So me and Mike's folder is called YOPN. We wanted to invite other people to this folder, but I have since kind of turned that off because I wasn't able to give them access to just a subfolder in the beginning. Now I can. So now inside of, they don't have access to anything outside of the subfolder.
But maybe they need access to their show, a show title and audio imaging. And now we can do that. And we can set that up,
right? Without them having access to anything else inside of there. So it's gotten way better. A couple of things I'm uncertain about with shared drives, just as a side note. I don't know how it works with people who, if you share with someone who has just a regular Gmail account or regular Google account and not a G Suite account, because I don't think they can download the Google Drive file stream app on their desktop because that is restricted to G Suite customers. And I think if they download just a regular Google Drive app or Google Drive sync and backup or whatever it's called, app that normal Google account users have, I'm not certain that the shared drive would show up there. It's a thing that I should try to figure out. I don't know how to try to figure it out.
Invite your personal account to a shared drive?
I know where I could do it at. Yeah, because I got that second installation of Catalina now that I could actually do it. And I could set up my personal account over there and figure it out. But anyway, the thing is, shared drives are great. They're great for internal stuff. You can share stuff with specific people and, not have to make it a shared, wide thing. Also, again, the storage doesn't count against people's storage. So if you have in a scenario where you and 3 other people are in the same G Suite account and you pay for individual extra storage, but your storage that you're using up in shared drives only counts against yours, which was one of the primary reasons I moved over to G Suite, to Google Drive full time. You can still, this is where I said this is going to get confusing. So hold on. Let's go back to the My Drive section. I have a folder. It's there. It exists. I can share that folder with other people still. Works just like the old days. Michael, you should still have access to this.
It might. I will check on the web because it might not pull my shared folders down. I might have it set because I think you can set it to not pull your shared folders. I'll look on the web later.
But as far as you can still share folders with people, because I was just in the sharing view for a folder that is inside of my drive, and I had the ability to invite someone else to that folder. The other thing that is weird is if someone shares a file with you. So here's the example, right? Had a designer share a file with me that she needed me to add to the WordPress site, and I could not find it. And I was like, oh, she's like, oh, I just shared it with you with Drive. I was like, oh, cool. You're a Drive user too. That's excellent. I was all happy. I go to my Finder and I go open up Google Drive file stream and I go to my Drive and I don't see it. And then I was like, well, maybe I put it in shared drive. So I go to shared drives. Nope, don't see it. You know what I had to do? I had to go to the web. And on the web, there's a whole nother tab that you don't see in Google Drive file stream.
Yeah.
It's called Shared with Me.
Yep. Shared with me.
Super annoying. Google, you should fix it. While you're changing names of stuff and rejiggering services and levels and storage gradients and all of this, why don't you just fix that thing? Like, that should show up to me somewhere on my desktop. I should not have to go out to the web to retrieve a file that was shared with me.
Though it has gotten better over the years, is still pretty shitty.
It's still clunky. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it could be better. It could be way better. Because what I was about to say is not actually true.
Think about how you want to wrap this up, because I am at 22%.
Oh, no. So Mike's battery's dying, so we'll catch you guys next time. So yeah, that is Google Drive. My Drive is tended to be for your personal usage, and if you share a folder with someone out of there, the storage counts against both of you. Shared drives are a business feature, a G Suite or Google Workspaces, if you're new to it now, feature only, but pretty handy. And that's about it. That's all I have.
We will have show notes and more information at yourownpay.com/DM64, unless we completely butchered those numbers and we're on a different number. No, I think we're on the same page. We are at DM64.
We're on the right number. Yep, we are on DM64. yourownpay.com/DM64. Be sure to check out Mike on AMI
Mondays at 2:10 p.m. Eastern, 11:10 a.m. Pacific time, where we are doing Tech with Michael, because I couldn't come up with a more creative name, giving you a shot of technology news to get your week going. Coffee was my reference for the shot. No one has asked me that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Give them the URL to listen to your show, man.
AMI audio. No, AMI.ca/listen live, but there will be a link in the show notes now that I said something. I have to put a link there. Or if you follow me on Twitter at Payown, PAYOWN, you will get alerted thanks to drafts on Sundays, the day before I go live. And you can follow Damashe, who is going to be retweeting these, even though he doesn't know it yet, on Twitter at
DAMASHE.
You've been listening to Your Own Pay Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, visit yourownpay.com/cast for exclusive content and to contact us today. We're eager to hear your thoughts and about how you're making this podcast your own. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. The Your Own Pay Podcast, yourownpay.com.